missing someone.
Hey, this is Baundiesel. I'm bringing you a video today talking about other looter type games and RPGs and stuff. I want to do a few of these where I bring up, classic or even current games that are, often compared to The Division or vice versa, and talked about, some features that they may have that I think would work really well in Division 2. So today we're talking about Diablo. Diablo is probably one of the most iconic games for most gamers, especially ones in my age group. Even if you haven't played Diablo, you've at least heard of it. I've, over the last couple of years, 2.5 years, often heard people compare The Division to Diablo, and I think to someone who hasn't played Diablo, may not make sense, because if you watch the two games being played, on first impression, they couldn't seem more different. But it's more about the gameplay loop and the looting and stuff like that. So I wanted to talk about a few things with Diablo that I think work really well in that game, and that could work really well in the Division 2. I do ask for a little mercy, cough cough rampancy, if you listen, that I've played a little bit of all three Diablos, but not extensively since the second one many years ago. But the three things I want to talk about with Diablo that I think are very interesting for Division 2: classes, artisans, and rifts. So the classes in the first Diablo were rogue, sorcerer, and warrior. The warrior was kind of a tank, close quarters combat. The rogue was a ranged with less health and kind of some trap ability, and the sorcerer being a spell-based, essentially glass cannon. In later games, they added a lot more classes. I believe there's 7 in Diablo 3 after expansions and so on. But it's a system that you selected. It's one of the first things you do, what you're gonna be, and it extremely it very clearly defines how you're gonna play the game. But you can customize that with the gear that you pick up and the weapons and so on. So the Division never really had a class system, and it seems like it was by design, and that's not a bad thing. And in some ways, it seems like the classes, the typical ones, were almost prevented. A good example is the Striker classified gear. People have a lot of issues with classified gear. Some people love it. I'm definitely on the fence. I love classified in a lot of ways. I think it caused a problem in others. But Striker is interesting because if you think of the healer, DPS, tank classes that many games have in one way or the other, Striker's all three. It can do extreme DPS, it can heal itself, and it requires going high in the stamina to have, and it can be tanky because of that healing. So it's in some ways the perfect set. But when it comes to balance and stuff like that, that obviously causes issues when you have a game that has PvP in it, as the Division does. With the Division 2, it sure seems like specializations are a step more in the direction of more defined classes, because the specializations are going to have a certain weapon that's used a certain way that's extremely powerful. They're going to have grenades that they can only access, and it seems like they're going to possibly have mods that mod the existing skills in a way only that specialization can. That may not be right, I may be wrong about that, but that sure seems like how it may go, and to be totally honest, I hope that's how it goes, because that way they can have specializations that push you in a direction of some kind of certain type of class, but still allow the freedom of using whatever guns you want, picking your skills and things like that. So that's something I really like when looking into Diablo, and it's something where I think they can learn from each other. Artisans are the next thing. These are NPCs who sell and will craft items. They are unlocked by completing specific tasks and use resources collected by the player for unique items, but the artisans themselves can also be upgraded as opposed to creating items from them or buying items from them. that is a really neat idea, and for me is one of the ones that seems so perfectly suited for the new civilian militia, kind of strongholds that it seems like we're going to be interacting with in Division 2. I love the idea, and we've already seen some hints from the demo that when you clear out an area, you collect resources, and you can give those resources to the civilians. And what I'm wondering is if this sure seems familiar, and I'm wondering if you can go back to those civilian strongholds and they will be able to give you items that you can't get anywhere else, but you're going to need them to be upgraded to a certain point. Maybe they can give you even better and better and better items the more you upgrade them and the more you kind of like the artisans. What I also like is that it seems like we can call in help from these various enclaves. And I'm wondering if when you first unlock an enclave and you ask for help, a couple people show up with guns. But the more you upgrade them, the more resources you give them, the more you expand their ability, they could potentially come and help you with heavier gear. They could be stronger, they could be faster, there could be more of them, they could be more organized. I love the idea of the civilian bases kind of mimicking this artisan system. The last thing is the rifts. So the rifts are randomly generated levels that combine enemy types that wouldn't normally occur in the game's world together. They're 10 to 20 minute levels where you have to kill so many enemies to get to the quote-unquote end. Different enemies of different strengths are worth more and more, or more or less than each other. And when you fill up this rift bar, that's the end, and it spawns a rift guardian who is the boss. And when you beat them, that's when you get all your rewards, and they're significant rewards. They're great rewards. I remember the lead up to the underground expansion, and I remember a lot of people getting the details about the randomly generated levels and so on, and thinking, oh, these are going to be rifts. This is going to be great. And while there are similarities between the rifts and the underground, like the randomly generated levels and the end bosses that you get in both, it just never quite, the excitement and the enjoyment I've seen from researching the rifts a bit doesn't seem to translate. I personally love the underground, but I see it more as a place for me to go test new builds, for me to get to fight some hunters, for me to go and kind of have some mindless fun. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. It does give decent rewards, especially at the end, especially from the hunters. But the big problem now is that so many of the people don't need those rewards, and they aren't consistent. Like, you don't know that every time you run through the underground that you're like guaranteed a classified piece, because that depends on whether or not hunters come, and it depends on whether or not they even drop that. You have no idea what you're gonna get and things like that. The end bosses, I assume, have a slight chance of dropping those things, but there's no guarantee. The underground definitely seems like it moved that direction, but didn't go all the way. So I would love to see some kind of similar system in the Division 2, but all the way, so that really provides that kind of rift experience. Obviously, Diablo is a legend in the gaming world, especially for looter RPG type of games. Knowing how many of the devs seem to enjoy Diablo and Path of Exile and games like that, I really hope they take some inspiration from it. I'm really excited to see what things from Diablo 1, 2, and 3 we may or may not see in the Division 2. That's all I have for you for this video. Check me out on Twitter and Twitch as Baundiesel. Look for the EchoCast on SoundCloud and iTunes. Support me on Patreon if you wish. Those links are all below. I appreciate your time. This was Baundiesel, and until next time.